Senator Foster.
You'll make that point. Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't support this amendment. Learning about the uses for medical marijuana, I have found that physicians that I respect greatly have found that it really does help their patients. Going through chemotherapy, for instance, it helps with the nauseousness. It helps with the pain with people that have crippling diseases. It helps with that pain. So to just come right out and say that you really think that it's just an illegal, yes, as a recreational use it is, but there are some very, very good products of marijuana. That's number one. Number two, so if I understand your amendment, a caregiver could be in any home, and there could be trafficking. People could be going hither and thar, between wherever they wanted, and say, well, that's my caregiver, and I'm getting my medical marijuana prescription from this person, my caregiver, at this particular address. And it really wouldn't matter how many homes, how many caregivers. And can you imagine the community, the neighborhoods, with everyone saying, well, no, I'm a caregiver, and that person's coming in to get their daily supply. And where are they getting this supply from? So it really, if we really want a Wild West kind of an atmosphere, that's how I envision your amendment. I'm sorry, unless it's different than that. I just don't understand. She's my caregiver, and I'm going to her house, and she lives in Cherry Hills, and he's my caregiver, and he lives in Denver, and I'm going to his house, and we've got everybody going to homes in neighborhoods to receive their marijuana, and how it got to their homes, we don't know.
Senator Romer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Renfro, we went through this with great detail when we provided the sheriffs their opportunity to shop their bill with a 5-patient cap. And frankly, the most cogent argument that everybody finally came around to, we're now, as Senator Spence mentioned this morning, and we're already at 82,000. We're probably going to minimum level out at 100,000 patients for now. If you put the 5-patient cap back in and you effectively get rid of the dispensaries, then effectively you're asking for 20,000 grow operations in every neighborhood in Colorado. And when we looked at that and looked at the home security risk, the ability that caregivers would have to meet up on the equivalent of kind of Match.com without any knowledge as to who this person was, that we just felt that there wasn't an ability to truly meet the demand, the true demand that was there for those who have cancer, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain from arthritis, those people who are desperate to use this for Crohn's. And so there is a sophistication. I spoke to that wonderful Republican homeschooling born-again Christian mom who is providing incredible care, including palliative care to death. And I just couldn't get comfortable that she could provide that type of quality care in an environment where they met on a web and are in somebody's home. So with all due respect, I don't think we want grow operations in 20,000 neighborhoods in our community. I think you truly want to stay with the intent of Amendment 20, and I also truly believe this bill will regulate the knuckleheads out of the business and will actually return exactly to the intent of Amendment 20, which is what I decided and why I chose to run this bill. Because I truly believe with the regulatory environment we provide, we're returning to the intent with the guardrails. And I, with all due respect, blue books are not law. Blue books are not the definitive statement. Blue books are an interpretation of staff of statements made by proponents and opponents. They are not the matter of law. That's why we're elected to make these laws. And there's been a lot of debate about what the voters intended in Amendment 20. And in almost most communities in Colorado, each individual community is going to get to decide for themselves whether or not they want the question of medical marijuana centers, which is why I like the bill that Senator Spence and I have now spent 5 months negotiating.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Foster, read the Constitution. For your points, you didn't make any points against my amendment. You actually made points for my amendment to vote for it, except you just talked about things that are not in our Constitution. Of course, there are people out there that believe that medical marijuana helps patients. We had testimony in Judiciary Committee the other night on my measure, and I don't dispute that. I mean, we had a military war veteran that came in and talked about the abuses that and the addictions he had to drugs, and how getting onto marijuana has been the best thing for him. And I believe him. And I thank him for his service. You know, that was great of him to come down and testify. And this amendment does not change that. Excuse me. This amendment does not change that opportunity at all. This amendment goes back to what Amendment 20 says we can have. If you say that I'm using the blue book, Senator Romer, well, let's go to Amendment 20. Let's go to what's in our Constitution. A primary caregiver means a person other than a patient and the patient's physician who is 18 years of age or older and has a significant responsibility for managing the well-being of a patient who has a debilitating medical condition. And then you go further on within it. It says, effective June 1 of 1999, it shall be an exception from the state's criminal laws for any patient or primary caregiver. I don't see a dispensary anywhere in this language. In lawful possession of a registry identification card to engage or assist in the medical use of marijuana except as otherwise provided in a couple other subsections. And Senator Foster, for you to say that this is going to just explode and be a Wild West in our neighborhoods, what do you think we have right now? Holy cow. We have more dispensaries than Starbucks. More dispensaries than Starbucks right now. People were getting their marijuana, medical marijuana, and the care that they needed from 2000 until 2007. We never heard a problem. Until we had the rules changed, thrown out by the court, and the Obama administration looking the other way and not enforcing the federal law, we didn't have this explosion. This explosion is obviously retail, and it's questionable if it is for medical uses in every instance. My daughter's 17 years old and a junior in high school, and the stories that she tells make my stomach turn. What happened outside this Capitol on 4/20 was an embarrassment to the state of Colorado. It was an embarrassment that our governor didn't have our National Guard out there and take away everybody out there's medical
Senator
marijuana
Renfro,
card that had a
Can you stick to the
card.
amendment, please?
Because it does say in our Constitution there are exemptions of where you can use the product, and in public is not one of them. What this amendment would do is it would put it back in the hands of a caregiver on that intimate relationship and end the dispensary, which is nowhere in our Constitution. Caregivers are in our Constitution, and let's put it back to that level. And if you want to know what the will of the people is, yes, this was the SCR 5 that I carried into committee that was referred to the voters. This amendment here is just putting it in statute as opposed to referring it or putting it in our Constitution. But the voters have spoken around the state on this issue in some instances. In Weld County, in the town of Windsor, was debating whether they should have additional dispensaries. They didn't know what to do, so they put it to a vote of the people. The people voted 3,514 to 905 against dispensaries. That's quite a vote spread there. That's the people talking of what they want, and they don't want dispensaries. So vote yes on this amendment.